and we went down thinking that we were going to be dealing with this issue of trying to have Mrs. Sacoolas back to the UK to face the music. And so we were quite optimistic as we were traveling down and thinking we might be able to find a solution. But when we got there, it became clear early on that something was afoot, because they kept trying to separate me from the parents, and they feel very attached to me, they feel safe with me, and there were various attempts, you know, to separate us, which troubled me. And but you know, I wasn't going to be removed from them, no matter how many burly Secret Service types were trying to prevent me. I just pushed right by several of them, managed to get my way back to the group, who at that point were in the holding room outside the Oval Office. We were then escorted in, and what happened then was, President Trump, you know, to give him his due, he was very warm, very kind, and offered his condolences and established a good rapport with our group. But then once we sat down, something then was wrong, because the mood changed, and he said, I can't remember the exact words, but it was, "I've got her here, I've got the lady, and she wants to meet you." And we were just shocked. And instantly, you know, just the air just changed. It became sinister. And yeah, she's in the room next door. She really wants to meet you. And I felt this intense pressure. And of course, you know, my friends, you know, Harry's parents, are just, you know, lambs to the slaughter. They've never done anything like this before. And they were, you know, they were completely taken aback by it. So, you know, not forgetting that this family are still grieving, we felt, and we had talked about it before, that if this happened to us, we're not ready to meet. Although we would like to meet with her, it has to be further down the line, once there's been some therapy, and maybe in a controlled environment where there's mediators and therapists, to have that sprung on them, like, you know, it's like some sort of circus. And so I, fortunately, found the strength to jump up and say, "No, Mr. President, we are not doing that today. It's inappropriate." And I said, if we ever do that, it's going to be back in the UK with Mrs. Sacoolas over there. And at that point, I didn't know who the gentleman was, but he was sitting next to President Trump, and I subsequently found out it was Robert O'Brien, who's the National Security Advisor. And he was looking very angry at me. He was really angry, and I felt threatened and intimidated by him. He was sitting not far from Charlotte, Mrs. Charles, and when I made that comment that we'll do this back in England if we ever do it, he looked at me in such a threatening way, and he said, "She is never coming back, never." But looked at me, and you know, as I said, you can see I'm a big guy. I don't fear too many people. And then the meeting pretty much descended then into a few exchanges. Charlotte then took over, and she addressed the president directly and explained why we were in that position, that she was emotionally still shut down, she couldn't release her grief, and that although one day she might want to meet, not there, she's not ready. And so she stood her ground, and she's only 5'2", and it was incredible to sit back and watch. Once I had sort of paved the way for her, she took over from me, and President Trump Mr. O'Brien kept trying to interrupt, but President Trump sort of stopped him, and they did then engage President Trump and Charlotte directly, and she did connect with him, to the point where I think both parties recognized that there was no point in carrying on, and we then sort of made a move to leave. But just as I was doing that, I then realized that there were cameras in the Oval Office as well, and I thought, well, what are they doing there? This was clearly an orchestrated attempt by many people in the White House to take us people from England down there and to create a photo opportunity for the president, and we are not happy with it. I've seen his frankly disgusting, disgraceful comments about perhaps some of the difficulties that are involved in driving on the wrong side of the road. Yes, we do drive on different sides of the road. Britons come over here and drive here, and we go over there. If you don't feel that you're able to drive on the other side of the road, then you shouldn't do it. And his comments that it was just almost, oh well, just one of those things, is frankly outrageous. And we will not let Harry's passing, we won't let him die in vain. He was a terrific kid, and she made a mistake that night. But if we drive otherwise than in accordance with the rules of the highway, we know, and if we cause harm or injury, we have to submit ourselves to the authorities and let them investigate. And that is it. So his comments, frankly, are childish, oafish, and highly irresponsible. Our position is simply all along that she should submit herself to the English legal system and to report to the police. So that is our condition for meeting with her or her advisors, that she gets on a plane and does what any of us would have to do.